You know, it's long been said that if you want to take beautiful photographs, make sure that you go to beautiful places. Well, it would appear as though my next vacation might need to be in Burma. Today, it's praying for the dead on this episode of Behind the Shot. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Shot, where we try and get inside the mind of great photographers by taking a closer look at one of their shots. I'm your host, Steve Brazel, and today's guest is Peter Levshin. Peter is an LA-based photographer, mostly does landscape and fine art and travel type photography. Peter, how are you doing this morning?
Good, thanks, Steve. Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. It's nice to have you on. I've been wanting to talk to you about this image for quite some time, so I'm glad that I finally got to get you on the show. Let's talk first a little bit about you, just really quickly. You live in LA, but based on your accent, you're not from LA. Where are you from originally?
Okay, originally born in Sydney, Australia. And as most Australians, my vintage, around the 60-year-olds, we grew up with American TV, culture, history, music. And I've always loved coming up to the US, visiting. So 28 years ago, moved up here and had a great time. Love living in the United States.
And based in Southern California. And do I describe it right? It's landscape, fine art, travel type photography with a little bit of a lean towards photojournalism style. Does that kind of describe you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't like using Photoshop that much. I'm not very good at it. I don't do composites. I'd like to catch the image like, the old dinosaur photographers in the old days when we used to use film. That I don't want to change it. I want to take a photo, make it look good, and present it.
So basically be true to the art that you saw in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got some recognition behind you as well. You've actually been on the cover of Professional Photographer magazine more than once, I think, including the image that we're going to talk about today, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you've had images in the PPA loan collection.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating about you is, and I've told you this to your face, I personally think you're one of the best photographers that I know from a travel photography point of view. The image we're going to do today, I actually had come up in front of me at an image competition that I was judging once in Orange County. And I think you're one of the best that there is out there, but you make your living figure out how to word this. You create things for people in the creative community.
Yeah. Thank you for saying my pictures are nice. And I get quite uncomfortable when people say that my pictures look good because I never think they look good enough at all. So I always try to do better and better and better. But we make our living. We do work for Paul McCartney, for the Rolling Stones. We do stuff. We do printing, advertising. We do a lot of entertainment work. We do stuff for Mattel. And we print over the last 25, 30 years a lot of coffee table books for Taschen, very large companies. And we get to see probably 200,000 to 300,000 images a year. And when you see
and in
that
fact,
kind of
you're
quality,
sitting in front of a bunch of them right there behind you.
Yep. And we get to see lots and lots of pictures. We hang out with a lot of very talented photographers and creative people. And we just love the inspiration that, you think you've seen it all. And then all of a sudden somebody comes up with some beautiful, beautiful artwork or imagery. And you go, that is fantastic. I mean, we just love how the creative mind works. Just love it.
Well, and the company you're talking about is called ICLA, which is based in LA. Yep. And you've done books, as you said, for Paul McCartney from a photograph point of view that people might know. Jerry Guionis,
yes.
You did his book, Mattel Packaging and Marketing Materials. And your company is actually a Grammy winner. You've got 3 Grammys for packaging, which is a category I didn't even know was a Grammy.
Yeah.
But you've got a new project that's out too. Tell me before we get into the shot real quick about Premier Artist Collection.
Yeah, well, what happened was we came across a lot of talented photographers that had jobs as a wedding photographer or a commercial photographer. And as a sideline, they would create some of the most magnificent imagery I've ever seen. And we always used to ask, okay, you're selling this work? What are you doing with this work? And they would always say, no, I'm not selling it. It's too hard. I don't have time, whatever. So then 3 years ago, Troy Miller and I got together and we said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a website to feature these artists and sell their work? And what we did is we created packartist.com. And we've got 15 artists on there now. This is work that's never been seen before. And we produce it and print it with, gallery quality acrylic prints. And these are outstanding at really, really good prices. And we will ship around the world. And we're starting to get orders now. And it's going great. And
you just basically launched it. I mean, it's fairly new. And you mentioned Troy Miller, who is, for those who didn't see episode number 5 of Behind the Shot, phenomenal wedding photographer. And he's, I believe it was episode number 5. But if you go check out the Behind the Shot page at This Week in Photo, you can find all the past episodes. Yeah. And I describe Pack Artists to people as it's a fine art outlet made up of artists that were handpicked by you.
Yes. And what's interesting is Troy Miller is one of the best wedding photographers in California. And you see his work and he's got pictures of waves. He's got pictures of smoke. He's got pictures of things exploding in his garage. And you look at the work and you go, this is incredible. It's amazing. And then you look at the man and you go, this is unbelievable. How could you do creative wedding photography work and then have it's like two people in the same body? It is just outstanding. Beautiful work.
Yeah, amazing stuff, and I wish you all the best with the new project. So let's get into your photo really quick here.
Sir.
This photo I mentioned that I had seen before. I was judging an image competition, and this shot came up. And the shot is from Burma, and the title is Praying for the Dead. So let me bring this shot up so that everybody can see it and kind of get an idea what we're talking about here. But the shot is amazing, and I've seen the magazine cover, and if you Google it, you can find this shot. It was the cover of Professional Photographer magazine in July of 2016. When you shot this, am I right, this was Burma?
Yes, absolutely. So just a brief history of this is we were doing a photo tour 3 weeks through Burma, taking pictures, photojournalism kind of pictures, walking through. We're walking near this village and these temples are, thousands of years old, 800 years old, and they are completely nondescript from the outside. You wouldn't have a clue. We're walking through because it's really hot and steamy and hot outside. We're walking through, we're having a look. And I looked over in the corner and there's this young monk sitting in the corner with 3 candles, and he's just looking at us. And we walked in and we started talking to him through our interpreter, and we were very polite, very respectful. And these are relics of the dead, and they put them as a place where they can come back and worship, whatever. He had 3 candles, obviously not enough for any kind of lighting. So what we did is we scrounged up maybe a dozen or 2 dozen candles, and we asked him very politely if it was okay to take some pictures. I got 4, maybe 5 shots on a tripod, extremely low light conditions. His face, he's extremely nervous. He's never done this before. And afterwards, we gave him a small donation, and he was just flabbergasted. He was the nicest young man. He's probably about 12 years old. Nothing like this has ever happened to him before. And we basically left. And since this photo has been shot, a lot of photographers now want to go there and take photos.
So you said it was extremely low light. What camera was this? Do you know?
This is shot with a Canon 5D3. We're talking probably 500 ISO.
Actually, I looked up the EXIF data on this. Your ISO on this was 1,000.
Okay, 1,500. It's the same ballpark. It's pretty bad. Anyway, 2.0 to 2.8 widest aperture on my lens. I think I was shooting a 16-35. And just trying to capture. There's no flash. It's just candlelight. And
this is all candlelight?
All candlelight only.
So you're saying I'm looking at his face.
Mm-hmm.
His face, his cheeks are pretty lit up.
Yeah.
But that's all from that candle that he's holding?
That's all from the candles. There's just all from the candles around him. There's probably maybe another 8, 9 in front of him that you can't see in the shot because I cropped it. But it was extremely hard to ask this poor young monk to sit still and do not move. And out of maybe I think about 8, 9, 10 shots that I've got, probably half of them are blurry because he moved. But, it's one of those things that as a photographer, and I've been shooting maybe 40-something years, whatever, it's when you come across a situation like that, sometimes you're better off lucky than good. And if you know what you're doing, hopefully, and you grab the shot, that turns out wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming you were at a very slow shutter speed?
Yes, very slow, probably 15th of a second.
So you're shooting in a temple. Are there issues just with the pure fact that you're walking through a temple with a camera and taking shots? I mean, does that cause anybody that,
No.
any of the monks to be offended?
No, most of the monks aren't there. He was just praying there. The monks in Burma, Myanmar, are the friendliest on the planet. They are extremely generous with their time. They will talk to you. If you ask them to stand and pose, they will. They don't stick their hand out for money. They are the nicest, most wonderful people you could ever meet. I mean, it was across the board. The temples are all dark and there's no, lighting in there because there's no electricity. And you could walk, 15 feet past a magnificent monument and you wouldn't even know. So these temples, they're happy to have tourists come in. Some are restricted that you can't go in because, they're actually crumbling and falling apart and it's a safety issue. But most of the time they want people to take photos, have a look, and be encouraged about the fact that Burma's, so photogenic. You cannot take a bad photo in Myanmar, Burma. You cannot. There's just magnificent scenery everywhere. And the people are wonderful. The people are absolutely wonderful.
This shot, I'm sitting here looking at it as you're talking. And I got to tell you, it's a National Geographic shot to me. I could see this image on the cover of a National Geographic. That's how beautifully, it's going to sound weird, that's how beautifully lit it was. You added those candles and it created this brilliant range of light. So there's very little in here that's clipped solid black. Even around the little arches where there are, what do you call them? The little teeny statues that are in there.
Yeah.
Even those are not clipped to solid black. I mean, it's just brilliantly done. I'm curious, did you show him the picture when you were done?
We showed him the pictures in the camera. And what we did is I did a couple of prints of this and I sent it to our guide in Burma, and he passed these pictures on. And he said that the monk, this young novice monk, was extremely happy and very, very thrilled to actually get some pictures. And
you actually sent him the photos?
Yes, absolutely. When we travel, we always try, and when we get pictures of people and we ask them if they want pictures, if they say yes, we try and send them pictures. We took some pictures in Thailand, this is probably 15 years ago, on a monk walking across the bridge on the River Kwai, and it took 7 years for the photo to get to him. I don't know where it went and why it took so long, but he just sent me a note later and say, thank you very much.
See, and I've heard many people that are travel photographers, Rick Salmon being one, saying, whenever you're traveling, like you're in Africa and you're at a village, and always ask them, would you like a copy, and try and get them a copy of the picture, because in a lot of these places, they don't have cameras. So unlike us, who, I've got 10,000 photos or whatever on my phone of my family, they don't have photos of themselves, et cetera.
Yeah.
One thing that strikes me about this shot is the color. So you said that you're not great at Photoshop. You're not a huge Photoshop user. You're a Lightroom user, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I use Lightroom. Yeah.
Do you use Photoshop at all?
No. I use Photoshop for maybe some cropping and maybe some spot reduction, content aware, and that's about it. And this photo, the saturation of the red and everything else was all natural because, this room that he's in doesn't see any natural daylight. So all the pigments and the ochres and everything on the wall are not touched by, any ultraviolet light. And it is extremely, extremely dark. So in Lightroom, all I did was move some of the levels, move some of the shadow highlights, move those up a little bit, did a little bit of, the clarifying tool, just a little bit to make sure that the candle highlights aren't blown out. And that's basically it. I didn't use anything else on this. And that's, it's one of those things that every now and then, I've shot hundreds and hundreds of thousands of photos. You get lucky and you get something that, you really like and looks great.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the color and the mood that really make this picture. Those deep tones and the darkness and the I don't want to say high contrast light, but you know what I mean. That mood that is in this picture. And what post did you do to this?
That was it. Basically, just
all of it. What you just said is everything you did.
Yeah, it's it. Darken the corners just a tiny little bit, whatever. I mean, we're talking maybe 15, 20 minutes. That's all it was. And then just one of the things I just want to point out, I mean, he looks pissed off, but he's not. He's not pissed off. He's just really nervous because he's never done this before. if you saw the face of this young man afterwards, he was laughing and smiling, and he was so sort of happy that it was over. But he was so nervous that we thought that he would be bad at it, and I said no, he was great, and he was just a very respectful, just a fantastic young.
No, and the way he's looking at you tells a story. I mean, you couldn't have coached him any better. So amazing job. I think it's fascinating that you actually showed this shot to him and got him a copy of it. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. First of all, we mentioned ICLA and we mentioned Pack Artists before.
Yep.
So if people want to know more about Peter Levshin, they can go to icla.com is the one website, which is your print and packaging company that you're sitting at now with all the books behind you.
Yes.
What was the URL for Premier Artists?
It's PAC, P-A-C, artists, ARTISTS.com. And again, we're getting new people onto the site, and people can go and have a look at it. And all the work on there has never been seen before. We've got Karen Nakamura, Christy Elias, Bobby Tan. We've got a whole bunch of artists that are just outstanding. No two photos are the same. We want artists with different work. And, you know, we've shown some hotel people. They're just absolutely rapt at the quality of work. There's so many
actually at WPPI, I was lucky enough to go with you and watch in fact, this print, I think it was, being printed at 60 inches wide. And it's a beautiful thing when they're that big. Yep. On Instagram, it's just at Pack Artists.
Yes.
Facebook, it's at Pack Artists.
Yes.
Twitter, it's _Pack Artists. And I've got to ask you about this one. I did some research on you the other day, and I found out you actually have a 500px account. This happened with my last guest too, who had a strange handle on 500 pics. Yours is Peter167.
Yeah, actually it's Levo, L-E-V-O photography. Okay. Don't ask me how that came out because it's a long story and you don't have 2 hours. So it's Levo photography, and I've put some pictures up, and what got me started is I put a picture of Hawaii up there, and I got 130,000 people looking at it. And I was kind of shocked because I put it down as the wettest place on earth, and I had 7 people from India correct me and say, there's a place in India that gets 380 inches, not like Hawaii, 373. But anyway, 500px, fabulous.
It's still, to me, if you want to show high quality art, 500px is the place. They, unlike a Facebook or an Instagram, there's no compression on the images that I know of. The images that you upload, I mean, because I have people ask me all the time, how do I export my images to counteract what Facebook is going to do to ruin them?
Yeah.
Well, and my answer is post them on 500px.
Yeah. Now on 500px, there's an artist on there, Ravindra Prakasa, and he's now a Pack artist. He has 5 to 6 million views and likes, and he's one of the top guys on 500px, and he's now signed up with Pack Artists. Wonderful, wonderful guy, photographer out of Indonesia, Jakarta, Indonesia. Wonderful, wonderful guy. I mean, extremely giving and very, very talented with his children and animal pictures.
Well, I would recommend that everybody head up to thisweekinphoto.com, go to the page there for Behind the Shot, find this episode. I will have all the links to Peter's work. I'll have some samples of Peter's work, more than just the image that you saw in this episode, as I do with all episodes. There'll be a small gallery there of all of his shots. I'll have links to everywhere that you can find Peter. Go check him out. He's got some amazing stuff out there. And again, Peter, thank you very much for joining me, man. I appreciate your taking time out of your work day and telling everybody in your office, be quiet, I'm recording.
And hey, thanks for the interview, Steve. And I'm truly sorry that I've been kicking your ass in the photo comps. I didn't mean to do it. Had I known how nice a man you were, I would have maybe put, lesser pictures in there, but you wouldn't like that either. So
no. If I'm going to be beaten, I want to be beaten by somebody good.
Hey, thanks, man.
Appreciate your time, buddy. That's it for this episode of Behind the Shot. Make sure that you join us next time as we try and get inside the mind of a great photographer by taking a closer look behind the shot.